In the realm of the eternal, death is but a fleeting shadow. Neville Goddard. Have you ever wondered about stories of people who defied death, those who seem to have lived beyond the ordinary laws of nature? Well, today we're getting into a fascinating topic, the three men who never died. It's a powerful, thought-provoking subject that might challenge everything we thought we knew about life, death, and the mysteries of existence. The first man we'll talk about is the enigmatic figure of Enoch. His story is brief but incredibly powerful. Enoch was a figure from the Bible, and according to the book of Genesis, he walked with God for 365 years. Then, in a rather cryptic statement, it says that Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. It's one of the most mysterious lines in the Bible. Unlike other biblical figures who lived long lives, Enoch didn't experience death in the traditional sense. Instead of dying, he was taken up by God into the heavens, leaving behind a legacy that continues to intrigue scholars and spiritual seekers alike. The next individual on our list is Elijah, the prophet from the Old Testament. His story is closely tied to that of Enoch. In the second book of Kings, it's described that Elijah didn't die in the conventional way. Instead, a chariot of fire came down from the heavens and took him up, body and soul, to be with God. His dramatic exit from the earth was witnessed by his follower Elisha, who had been with him for years. Elijah's departure defies all logic. He didn't succumb to death, but was rather taken up into the sky in a spectacular display of divine power. Elijah's story raises questions about the possibility of human transcendence and what might happen when our time on earth is over. The third person in this intriguing group is Jesus Christ. Now, his story is one that has been passed down through millennia. In Christian tradition, Jesus died on the cross for humanity's sins. But here's where it gets interesting: after his crucifixion, death, and burial, he was resurrected. His resurrection was not just a temporary return to life, it was a transformation. He rose from the dead in a new, glorified body, one that transcended the physical limitations of earthly existence. Jesus didn't merely return to life in a traditional sense, he overcame death altogether. After appearing to his disciples and followers, he ascended into the heavens, promising to return. In the context of his death and resurrection, Jesus exemplifies the idea of transcending death, challenging our very perception of life and what lies beyond it. So, what do these three men have in common? All of them offer us a glimpse into a reality that challenges the typical human experience of life and death. While the majority of people throughout history have gone through the natural cycle of birth, life, and death, these figures appear to have broken free from that cycle. Their stories suggest that there might be more to existence than we can fully comprehend. They provoke deep questions about the nature of life, death, and the divine. But, let's step back for a moment and think about the message here. Why are these stories important? What can we learn from the lives of Enoch, Elijah, and Jesus? One thing that stands out is the idea that death, in its traditional sense, may not be the ultimate end. These figures show us that there might be another way. Perhaps a way of transcending the physical realm, reaching a higher state of being. Or even being chosen for a divine purpose that transcends our understanding of mortality. Moreover, these stories highlight the power of faith. For Enoch, Elijah, and Jesus, their connection to the divine was a key factor in their transcendence. Whether it was Enoch's relationship with God, Elijah's prophetic mission, or Jesus' divine nature and teachings, each individual's unwavering faith seems to be central to their miraculous journey beyond death. Enoch's experience, in particular, invites us to consider the possibility that by walking in alignment with a higher spiritual purpose, we might be able to transcend the limitations of our physical existence. His story suggests that there is something more than just the physical world we see and interact with every day. It points toward a higher realm, a spiritual dimension that exists beyond time and space. Enoch's walking with God represents a state of unity with the divine. A state where time and death no longer have power over us. Elijah's dramatic ascent into the heavens speaks to the idea of divine intervention. It's a reminder that there are forces at work in the universe that we may not fully understand. But they are real and capable of transcending the boundaries of life and death. Elijah's story reminds us that, in the face of hardship, there may be an escape from the cycle of suffering, even if it's beyond our comprehension. For Jesus, his resurrection and ascension challenge the very concept of death. It teaches us that death isn't the end, but a transformation. His resurrection offers hope to all who believe that, just like him, we can experience a renewal beyond the grave. It reinforces the notion of life after death, not in a simple continuation of existence, but in a higher, more glorious form. So, what does this all mean for us today? It's easy to feel trapped by the limitations of our physical existence. We can't escape the reality of aging, sickness, and death. However, the stories of Enoch, Elijah, and Jesus offer us a different perspective. They invite us to consider that there might be more to life than we can see with our eyes or measure with our science. These figures also challenge us to examine our own beliefs. Are we living life with a higher purpose in mind, or are we simply going through the motions? Enoch's example of walking with God reminds us that a deep, spiritual connection can help us transcend the mundane aspects of existence. Elijah's story challenges us to remain faithful and trust in divine intervention, even when life seems chaotic or unfair. And Jesus' resurrection offers us hope, that no matter what happens, there is always the potential for renewal, growth, and transformation. But these stories also remind us that we are not alone in our journey. Whether we view them as symbolic, literal, or both, the lives of Enoch, Elijah, and Jesus speak to the possibility of a greater connection to the divine. We are reminded that, just as these men were chosen for a purpose, each of us might have a deeper calling that transcends the material world. There's a quiet but powerful lesson in these three men's stories. Death does not have to be feared. It might be simply a transition, a passage to something greater, something more expansive. These men didn't fear death. Instead, they went beyond it, breaking through its boundaries to reach a higher state of being. Their stories encourage us to reframe our understanding of life and death and consider the possibility that we, too, are capable of living beyond the constraints of the physical world. If anything, the stories of Enoch, Elijah, and Jesus point to the idea that we are all capable of something greater than ourselves. Perhaps our current understanding of life and death is too limited. Maybe there's more to existence than we've been led to believe. It's a thought that can stir the soul, inspire action, and give us a new perspective on our place in the universe. The idea of transcending death is not confined to religious or spiritual realms. Philosophers, scientists, and thinkers throughout history have pondered the concept of life beyond death. Some have even proposed that the essence of a person, their consciousness, their soul, could persist long after their physical body decays. The notion of immortality, whether through divine intervention or scientific advancement, continues to captivate minds around the world. In a way, the stories of Elijah, Enoch, and Jesus Christ push us to question the limitations we place on ourselves. They urge us to consider what might lie beyond the physical, beyond the things we can touch and see. And perhaps more importantly, they encourage us to explore the possibilities of what it means to truly live. As we reflect on these stories, one thing is clear: the concept of life and death is far more complex than we may have originally thought. These figures invite us to explore deeper truths about existence, reality, and the nature of the human spirit. What does it mean to live forever? Is it possible that we can transcend our current understanding of life? These questions are far from being answered. But the stories of these three men who never died remain a compelling invitation to explore the mysteries of the universe. In the end, the question isn't necessarily whether these men lived or died as we understand it. The question is whether we are ready to explore the mysteries they left behind. To see life and death in a new light, and to understand that there may be more to our existence than what meets the eye.